Hey, what's up? Jimmy Smith for my pre-fight UFC 255 picks. Huge disaster today. I was supposed to do my radio show, and there was an internet outage in my area. Nothing I could do about it. First, the power went out, and then when it came back on, the internet didn't come back on. So I called, obviously, my internet provider, and they said there's an outage in your area for the next, 3 or 4 hours. Nothing you can do about it. Nothing anyone can do about it. That's it. I tried a few other locations. They didn't work. The codec we use to do SiriusXM shows from home, if there's any drop in the internet, like if you're watching Netflix and the internet drops out, it'll play for a little bit before it drops out because it buffers. The system buffers a little bit. Codecs don't buffer at all. So if there's any little tiny problem with the internet, it'll skip on air and there'll be all these gaps and it'll sound terrible. So you need really consistent internet in order to work these things. And I have that at home, but my home internet was out. So they had to play a repeat today. Just an absolute disaster. But it's the way it goes, man. Working from home, COVID, what can you do? So this is the day I make my picks and predictions for Saturday, and I wasn't able to do that. I'm going to do it here. I've been trying to keep up with YouTube as much as I can. It's just hard with all the stuff I have to do for SiriusXM and the research and my ESPN gig. It's hard to find the time to do the shows per week. I'm trying to keep up with it. It's just not easy. Okay, so let's start at the bottom of the card. Mauricio Shogun Hua versus Paul Craig. This is a rematch of a fight that ended up being a draw. And the issue of why it was a draw and what happened is Paul Craig has an excellent triangle, 6'4", long legs, loves working from his back. The issue is he tends to accept going to his back all the time. It was just too easy for Shogun Hua to stay on top, control the fight, and control minutes on the mat, essentially. And that ended up winning him rounds, and it ended up being a draw. I don't care how good your guard is. It's hard to catch Shogun Hua from your back. He has excellent jiu-jitsu in his own right. And that's the place you want to keep somebody. If you have any fluency in jiu-jitsu and you're pretty good, keep them on their back, stay on top, stay safe, stay careful, and it's hard to catch them, especially in MMA when they can punch you. So Paul can't do that. He cannot just accept being on his back thinking, I'm eventually going to catch Shogun Hua. You won't. Maybe you can, but dude's a black belt in his own right. He knows what's going on. He's hip to the ground game. So if Paul Craig works his outside striking a little better. He's a very powerful puncher. We know what he can do when it comes to his ability to finish guys. If he can do that and maybe not accept every takedown from Mauricio Hua, I think he wins this fight. If he flops to his butt over and over again, Hua's going to win another decision because judges almost always give it to the guy on top. So it's about Paul Craig to me. If he can just stuff the takedown of Hua, make it more of a striking game, I think Hua is one of those guys where I loved him to death in his prime. He's still, competent. He's still decent. 2 wins and a draw in his last 3 before after his loss to Anthony Smith. 3 wins before that. He's not bad. He hasn't gone off the cliff yet. He's good. He's not as good as he was, but he hasn't yet completely made me think he should retire. So if Paul Craig can keep it at distance and work his striking, he wins this fight. If he flops to his butt over and over, he's going to lose. It's kind of a coin flip. I think Paul Craig just doesn't accept takedowns as easily as he did in the first one, and he wins the decision, keeps it on the feet, keeps it outside, and uses his striking a bit more, and probably wins a decision against a very tough Shogun Hua. So Paul Craig by decision is my first pick. Katlyn Chookagian, Cynthia Calvillo. This is probably the hardest pick to make on this card, I think. Simply because they're both competent, they're both tough. Chookagian, good with her outside striking. She's good when she uses her angles. She's good when she uses combinations. She's not a power puncher at all, but she stays on the outside. She can tap you up a little bit and kind of pick you apart. Cynthia Calvillo has been inconsistent in her approach. The reason I kind of give her the edge in this fight is when she goes to her grappling, she can do well. If she's consistent with it, like she was against Jessica Ai, she can get it done just by keeping Chookagian off her feet and on her butt. Her one loss, a close one to Carla Esparza, where she got out-wrestled by another wrestler. I think this time around, I think she keeps the physical pressure on a little better. And I would say Cynthia Calvillo by decision. But this could be all over the place. I really am not confident with this pick at all, but I think Calvillo just wrestles just enough to get it done. So I have Calvillo over Chookagian by decision and probably a close fight. Tim Means, Mike Perry. Mike Perry missing weight, if you guys don't know, by I think 4 pounds, 4.5 pounds. He was, I think, 175.5. That's a crazy amount of weight. He just cannot keep going at 170 pounds. It's a whole separate debate about what we do about weight cutting and how do we fix this problem. I'll give you a quick drive-by, which is if you make the penalties too severe, fighters won't fight. And so every time I hear, I'll take all their purse, call it a no, John Anik recently said, make it a no contest instead of a win, and they won't fight. The one weakness to the UFC's system of not having them be employees is you can't fine them, you can't make them fight. If an NFL player doesn't step on the field, he's in deep trouble, right? In an MMA fighter, there are really no consequences for saying, okay, then I'm not going to fight. I'm an independent contractor. You can't make me fight. And if you don't make weight and someone says, okay, it's a no contest, you can't have a W, okay, I'm not fighting. If you take all their purse, okay, I'm not fighting. Take anything more than half, they're not going to fight. So that's the difficulty. UFC can't afford to have people just go, I'm not going to do it then, and lose fights. In this instance, they want Mike Perry, Tim Means. They want it to happen. If you make the penalties too severe, fighters will just not fight. And it sucks. It's not fair. I mean, I'm not saying these people are stupid for advocating these things. I'm just saying the downside is you're going to get fighters who just won't do it. So Mike Perry versus Tim Means. We know what Mike Perry does. He goes in there and he throws big punches, and it's kill or be killed. And against guys who stand there and slug with him, all action guys, Alex Oliveira and Paul Felder, he can win. Especially guys he has a physical advantage over. With Paul Felder, of course, a natural 155-pounder. If you stand and bang with this guy, he can knock you out. But if you're slick, if you have some abilities and some versatility like Vicente Luque and Jeff Neal, you can outwork him. Jeff Neal just tore him apart. So if you're a more polished striker who doesn't just stand and trade and makes him follow you a little bit, right? Use his footwork and stay at distance and stay at range, you can pick him apart. But if you're a stand and bang kind of guy, Mike Perry loves that. Tim Means is a stand and bang kind of guy. That's what he does. Win one, lose one. Since 2018, it's since the Ricky Rainey fight, win, loss, win, loss. He had lost 2 before that. So this isn't a guy who's, stunning. He hasn't had 2 in a row since, 2015, 2016. He just doesn't easily get it done, in terms of blowing opponents away. He's just stand and bang kind of guy. He's a little rangier, but he plays right into Mike Perry's strengths. So the X factor here, normally I would say Mike Perry all day. The X factor here is Mike Perry's been going through a lot outside of the octagon with the allegations of his ex-wife about alleging domestic violence and all this stuff that she went through. So you might say, how mentally ready is he for this fight? My counterpoint would be a lot of people fighting in the camp and all the stuff leading up to it is kind of a refuge. Right? It's your home away from home. It's a way for you to isolate yourself from those problems. Everything's okay as long as I'm training and fighting. So, Mike Tyson said when he fought Michael Spinks, he's like, dude, I had 3 girlfriends in the audience. My life was falling apart, knocked Spinks out in 90 seconds. That I could still do. That I could still, kept me safe from everything else. So I think in a sense that might be the same for Mike Perry, that he's able to kind of keep those things at bay while he's fighting and while he's training. So I don't think it's going to affect him that much. He goes in there, and also this is not, Mr. Technical, he's a scientist in there and has to outthink his opponents. He doesn't do that anyway. So him being mentally a little bit distracted, I don't think it affects his style that much. Then he goes in there and wings big punches, gets a knockout probably early over Tim Means. The co-main and main are easy to pick. I can basically say the same thing about both fighters. Valentina Shevchenko is the best 125-pounder, period, end of sentence. It isn't even close. The only competition she has, of course, is at 135 against Amanda Nunes, who she's fought twice. So no one at 125 is going to beat her for the foreseeable future. Until Father Time catches up with her, she's going to be champion. I don't see Jennifer Maia, who's riding a 1-fight win streak, won by armbar over Calderwood, providing much of a challenge. How could she win? I mean, maybe a decision. She has a decent ground game. She has good jiu-jitsu. I don't see her being able to weather the storm of Valentina Shevchenko and take her down enough to make that jiu-jitsu a factor. Valentina Shevchenko is levels above everybody else at 125. And this fight, to me, is just a showcase of that. And that's what's going to happen. Valentina Shevchenko by knockout, probably round 2 or 3. Davidson Figueiredo, Alex Perez, a similar situation. Davidson Figueiredo is just heads and tails above everybody else at 125. So when I saw the Joseph Benavidez fight, the last one, the first one wasn't close, but the last one was one of the most dominant performances I've ever seen in a title fight. And I remember thinking, if Benavidez really is the number 2 in the division, he hasn't had some kind of fall that we're unaware of or something like that, and he really is number 2, Figueiredo's not going to lose anytime soon because he kicked his ass from start to finish. Better on the feet, better on the ground, better with the jiu-jitsu, better with everything. Rangier, more powerful. He just kicked his ass. Alex Perez is an excellent fighter. He deserves this title shot. But saying somebody deserves a title shot and they can beat the champion are two different statements. I believe he deserves a shot. I do not believe he can beat Deiveson Figueiredo. He has to fight the most intelligent fight of his career. He has to catch Figueiredo extended. One thing about Figueiredo is he does tend to get a little overextended. He gets a little wild. And Alex Perez's specialty are those front chokes. Bravo, Anaconda, Guillotine. The ones where you get extended, you do something stupid, you leave your head down, and you get choked. If he can catch Deiveson Figueiredo extending himself a little too much, then he can get him. But it's pretty much Figueiredo's to lose. If Figueiredo doesn't do anything dumb and leave his neck exposed for Alex Perez, it's going to be a long night. He has a great leg kick. We saw that against Jussier Formiga. I don't know if he can stay outside long enough to get it working. You know, that's the kind of move, the leg kick. You have to put money in the bank early. You have to keep Deiveson Figueiredo on the outside. And Figueiredo has the reach advantage. So I just don't see a way for Alex Perez to win this fight any more than I see a way for Jennifer Maia to win the fight. I don't think it would be as bad as the Jennifer Maia fight. But I see Deiveson Figueiredo as a level above everybody at 125, and he's going to show it. So those are my picks. Paul Craig, Cynthia Calvillo, Mike Perry, Valentina Shevchenko, and Deiveson Figueiredo. All right. Talk to you on Monday and see what I got right. Or, Sunday. We'll see. Later.